Hello and welcome to NOV Live International. I'm Michael Gaines, host of the podcast NOV Today, and glad you're joining us for this segment in our continuing coverage of tech across our industry and talking with subject matter experts from across the space of energy technology. And so in this segment, we're going to be bringing in some folks to talk about aftermarket and some of the philosophies and perspectives in that area. So we'll be getting to our two guests, Lindsy Sallee and Zack Stewart, in just one moment. Before we do that, we're going to head over to our social media manager, Shelby Dumaine, who is in the comments section and ready to engage in combo with you. Hey, Shelby.
Hey, Michael. And welcome to everybody at home watching this, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. If you have a question at any point throughout the show for Michael or our experts, go ahead and type it in the comments there below. And like Michael said, I'm in the comments live throughout the show, and we're going to get to as many questions as possible. So at any point, go ahead and type in any questions or comments below in the comment section.
All right. Thanks, Shelby. All right, so as we just mentioned in this segment, we're going to be talking about aftermarket upgrades and what that means for continued operations, continued upgrades, and remaining at the cutting edge of ensuring that assets and support are at the forefront. And so we want to bring in our two experts today. We have Lindsy Sallee, who is the Vice President of Aftermarket Business Development, and we also have Zack Stewart, who is the Sales Director, Americas Offshore, both here with NOV. So Zack and Lindsy, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
So I'll actually start with you, Lindsy, kind of maybe setting the stage and helping us have a kind of conversational foundation. When you look at some of the more relevant technologies that can be added to a rig today, what are some of the things that we think about, and specifically keeping in mind the current market landscape that we see today?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about the past couple of years, the themes there are several trends and themes that are emerging, and they're actually pretty consistent for the land market, for the offshore market, even marine and construction vessels. So we're seeing a lot more investment in software-related enhancements to existing rig systems. I think we're just beginning to unlock the power of a more digital environment, and we have to do that at the right pace so that we have successful adoption by the users. We're also seeing some trends towards from a remote position, being able to see what's happening on the rig, more visibility and kind of oversight, and the ability to connect into a rig, link in remotely, which even in these past 2 months has only become even more important, that we can support customers from off of the rig. And then I think, another kind of trend that we're seeing is investment dollars being spent towards safety systems. So the real goal is to begin to minimize or altogether remove people from red zones on the rig. And some of our customers even refer to it as a black zone. So these three trends, I think, are really common across the industry. I think the market is evolving towards a more digital space. I think we'll continue to evolve going forward, and it'll be kind of interesting to see how things play out over the coming months.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So Zack, I'll pivot over to you. When we think about some of the concepts and that Lindsy just talked about, one of the specific areas that comes to mind is automation. So to that point, can you talk a little bit about how NOV automation products and approaches specifically for rigs today, what that looks like, and maybe kind of from a philosophy standpoint?
Sure. So following on with what Lindsy said, everybody's looking these days to big data. That's the buzzword you hear from everybody. And there was so much good equipment bought over the last decade or decade and a half that now the challenge is, how do I make that equipment run more efficiently? And my crews are getting leaner, and as Lindsy points out, we want less people on the drill floor. So how do I make all the tools run, but do it as efficiently or more efficiently than I did it before? And what you see here is this is sort of our overall automation philosophy, and we've spent the last few years working on adding automation packages to drilling, to pipe handling and tripling with multi-machine control, automation for your mud system. If you see the robotics, Andy McKenzie spoke with you yesterday about robotics. Strix is actually red zone people management. So it's cameras that tell the driller when somebody walks onto the drill floor and automatically make sure that the machines are out of that red zone. So this is the overall philosophy that we've looked at, and we keep adding tools into the suite to kind of get to the point eventually, which is a fully automated drill floor that can be done remotely.
Okay. So, maybe following on that, you're talking about automation and technologies there. So can you talk a little bit about Novos? I know some folks aren't familiar, but if you can talk a little bit about Novos and multi-machine control and how that plays a part in the process.
Sure. The easiest way to think of Novos and multi-machine control and how they play a part is Novos is automated drilling and multi-machine control is automated tripping. So if you step back from a simplistic point of view, we're not replacing the driller or the assistant driller. What we're doing is we're moving them from a detailed decision maker to a task manager where they can keep their eyes up. Again, going back to the red zone management, keeping people safe. But what we're doing is we're utilizing those skills and bringing all of the crews up to the same baseline of performance. So if you think about somebody running a lathe in the early 1900s, that person had a crazy amount of talent to be able to turn something on a metal lathe. But all of the knowledge resided with that one person. And the next person might not do it as well or do it as efficiently. So now if you look at the way things are done, we're using computer-controlled CNC machines. They're faster, and they do it the exact same way every single time. So what that lets you do is it lets the factory, produce more widgets quickly and do it the same way every single time. And that's what we're trying to do with these automation products. Is we're trying to take the traits of your best drilling crew and give all of your drilling crews the ability to do that at the same time.
Yeah. So you said something just a moment ago I'd like to circle back on. So you said, you talked about the driller and the assistant driller. So is it that Novos and MMC are replacing the driller and assistant driller to allow you to drill fully autonomously?
No, and that's one of the biggest misconceptions right now about all the automation products that we're offering is that it's going to replace the people. Well, that's not the case at all. What we're trying to do again is to move the driller and the assistant driller from somebody whose head is constantly down and pushing buttons and whatnot to somebody whose head's up and he's watching his guys on the drill floor, and he's watching the machines to make sure the machines are doing what he asks. And what it's giving you the ability to do is in real time, consult people from the shore and consult the experts to be able to make sure that the machines are drilling or tripping as efficiently as they can. But it's in no means replacing people on the drill floor.
Right. Okay. No, I appreciate the distinction. I think that is an important point. For those that are just joining us, we're talking with Lindsy Sallee, who is the Vice President of Aftermarket Business Development, and Zack Stewart, who's the Sales Director, America's Offshore. And we're talking about aftermarket and some of the technologies, solutions, and philosophies from NOV in that space. So Lindsy, I'll go on and pivot over to you. When we're looking at new technology, a lot of times it can be perceived as being complex. I'd like to laugh at myself. It used to be the new VCR would just blink 12 all the time because I was just like, I don't even know how to work this thing. And now I guess days it's a sound system or a DVD player, who knows what. But new technology is great, but it can sometimes kind of be a little daunting. How do we help our customers and those that are trying to adopt and incorporate new technology? How do we help them do that and make sure that they're successful in doing so?
That's a great question. So if you kind of step back and look at it, it really is a big exercise in change management, right? Because at the end of the day, what Zack said, you're not replacing people. We just have to equip them to work with kind of these new systems, right? So we've really innovated the support model, the service model through our automation lifecycle management programs, just thinking a little differently. We've moved away from this model of here's a new software update, we'll see you later, right? And we really want to be integrated into our customers' operations so that we can help with performance, aligned and understanding how they're measured by their end client, really helping them to feel like their investment in automation really kind of realize the full value of that investment. So I like to refer to it as these automation programs as an ever appreciating asset, because what we want to do is, as our customers kind of step into this world, we have a lot of feedback from the field on enhancements that make sense to deploy through the software. So there's a constant cycle of development and deployment to the field, which is driven by customer feedback. And so better understanding what's happening at the rig level allows us to kind of develop the right things that make sense for them, and then help coach them as they kind of work through it, and just make sure that we've really delivered this kind of environment of continuous improvement. So these automation lifecycle subscriptions are really interesting. I mean, fundamentally what we're offering is access to the latest and greatest software version available, trying to help our customers have kind of a consistent platform and the same revision of software regardless of where their rigs are operating. We're trying to bring data visualization into the mix so that our customers have a view of how is the automation system being utilized, and also are we kind of hitting the mark on some of these key performance indicators that we're measured by from our clients. We're really trying to leverage augmented reality, some technology that you may have seen on previous sessions from us to bring some remote support to the rig and do that creatively, so that we've really fully equipped our customers to kind of link in with us without necessarily having to wait on us to be able to have someone out in the field. And really just kind of coaching and consultancy on the rig, and support with machine tuning and all those different things that could contribute to performance and maybe inhibiting performance. We want to make sure that we've kind of, comprehensively looked at how we can help make our customers successful. Right. So we're pretty excited about these programs. They're applicable for land rigs. We've got them on offshore rigs. It's really kind of a neat service model that we've evolved to. Yeah,
no, yeah, and I it's just really good to hear that approach and perspective, especially like you said, ever appreciating assets and solutions there. So that's good. So when you and Zack, for you, when you start looking at the space of the ever increasing digital world that we're in, which I think is a great thing. But curious to know, how does that play a part when you overlay maintenance and support in that space? Does it change the picture, or are things still the same?
It does change the picture some, Michael. The challenge here is that we're layering all of this new software and technology onto your existing machines. And that does make it more complex. So instead of it being a mechanic, now you're looking at more computer and electrician type troubleshooting. So what we've come up with is a tool called MCDT, which is Machine Control Diagnostic Tool. And essentially what this is, if you think about it, is if you're driving your car and the check engine light comes on, you don't have any idea what it means. It could mean thousands of things. But what if that light came on and immediately told you, hey, you need to go check spark plug on cylinder number 3, and you could go right to it and troubleshoot it yourself instead of having to take the car, to the dealership and spend all the money to have, one of their trained technicians look at it. So essentially what we're doing here is we're handing the power of troubleshooting back to the rigs. So what we do is we provide a tablet that allows one person to real live troubleshoot all of the machines and the software as they're moving. So if something is not moving as expected, instead of having to shut everything down and send somebody out, to look and you start trying to guess, this provides you a detailed map of how to troubleshoot. So, you're talking, and what it's showing here is hydraulic circuits, and it's real time troubleshooting for that hydraulic circuit. So now instead of spending hours trying to find the problem, now maybe you spend minutes trying to find the problem. And the other thing that is really important in times like this with COVID and the coronavirus and quarantines, where it takes us a long time to get people out to rigs to troubleshoot. That rig can't be shut down while they're trying to learn where the problem is and try to figure out how to troubleshoot it. So what this does is this lets you troubleshoot directly from the rig with your personnel that are already out there, and then relay that information back to our centers of excellence, to our aftermarket department, and to be able to help us real-time troubleshoot remotely. So, you just think about right now in this, this highly challenging time, I mean, this is the perfect tool for this, because we don't have to send people out here. You can troubleshoot your own machines and make sure that they're tuned up and operating as efficiently as possible.
I had a problem with my coffee maker just recently, and I wish I had this technology to help me, or else I wouldn't have had to buy a new one. But you know what? That's a personal problem, and we're not going to bring that in. But what we are going to bring in are some of the questions that we have in the comment section. So I am going to bring in Shelby Dumaine and see if Shelby, if you can go ahead and start giving us some of the questions we have. And before you do, just a quick reminder, if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, go ahead and put your question in now, as we'd like to start to go on and get those over to Lindsay and Zach. So go ahead, Shelby, what do we have?
Absolutely. So our first question comes from Shankar on LinkedIn, and he was wondering how closely marketing or business development is involved in the process of product management.
So I think it's a great question. So when I talk about these different service concepts and these service models, the reality is it's a big feedback loop, right? And so we, more than ever are very closely aligned with our customers so that we have true feedback from the field, right? So we don't want to be kind of designing in a bubble. We want to know what actually makes sense, what's practical, not too overly complicated. So that's kind of what these programs have enabled, is just really tying the link from the field back to our organization, back together. So we feel like, confidently more than ever, we have a good kind of mechanism in place to capture that.
Awesome. And then we have some other questions, I think, on kind of the software, such as if Novo stands alone or does it require working with other software. Or we had another one kind of asking about MPD or managed pressure drilling, and how all of these pieces of the puzzle kind of work together.
Sure, I can answer that, Shelby. So, the great part about all of this automation that we've been rolling out is that it sits on top of your existing platforms. So you don't have to buy new equipment. It's just simply software that sits on top of your existing control systems. So, at any time, if one of the systems stops working, you just go back to drilling the way that you were. So it doesn't require any additional investment in equipment. It's just additional software to add to your control systems.
So let me jump in real quick, and one for you, Lindsay. When we look at, we've been talking about, obviously support in automation and really getting up ultimately a lot of the learnings from capturing maintenance insight. When we do that, how are we making sure that we are able to effectively capture those insights in order to best support our customers?
Sure, that's a good question. So kind of similar to what I was just saying. So we've kind of hit on the automation support, but then there's also a big piece of this, which is equipment lifecycle support. So the way that we do that is through our condition-based maintenance programs. And really through those programs, what we're helping enable is a more optimized, data-driven maintenance scheduling, and also really making decisions on equipment servicing based on an assessment of condition of that asset, not just a calendar date. So we really kind of see these CBM programs as game changing and really driving a lot of savings for our customers. If you have the ability to keep an asset in the field at what would maybe traditionally be a 5-year recertification period, and all the data aligns and says, hey, we think you're okay to continue in service, then that really starts to become game changing. So it's interesting. It ties into this data world, and bringing different elements back from the rig, bringing streaming data back from vibration monitoring systems, oil monitoring systems, bringing native sensor tags back, and kind of formulating this full picture of equipment health. And when I think about data, and especially streaming data from the rig, it's a wonderful thing. And I think I mentioned this earlier, we're just starting to unlock the power of it. But I also want to, I want to highlight what's really important is that we can never forgo laying eyes on the equipment, right? A periodic inspection and checking for corrosion and just simple things like that are never going to be fully replaced by just having data, right? So our programs kind of take all these different information sets. We're looking at parts change out and, trying to detect if there are any early failures, any trends that we need to keep an eye on. We've got a little bit of oversight of maintenance activities on board, so we can kind of see if, like I said, if there's any indications that we may have an equipment issue on the horizon, and really just taking that plus this wonderful big data world that we have, and as multiple reference points to kind of build a more holistic picture of equipment health.
Yeah, and I'd like to maybe get your insight as well, Zach, especially in the idea of what Lindsay just talked about, the condition-based maintenance concept. Because like we were just talking, if we're referring to a car, for instance, I'm a car guy, so going from just change the oil every 3,000 miles to now having the ability to change it based on either usage or other parameters, has been a shift, a positive shift in the automotive world, and I suspect the same is being seen in the energy space. Sure,
and that's to Lindsay's point, that's where we've been trying to get to is instead of saying every 3,000 miles change your oil. Now we're looking at it and saying, well, what does the oil look like? And allowing you to make smarter decisions for the maintenance of your equipment, because in today's oil field, every dollar matters. So if you can delay maintenance until it's absolutely required, and you can get insight from the experts at this, where we've designed the equipment, then think of what that means to your budgets. And this lets you not only do that, but it lets you plan your maintenance much better, because now you can see when things actually need service instead of when you just think that they need service. And that's just game changing there. Yeah, no, that's really cool. All right, we're going to bring Shelby in again. It looks like we've got some more questions. I see some additional conversation and comments going on there. So Shelby, what do we have?
Sure, Michael. So we got a few questions, I think, on the installation process and what that looks like for getting these on actual rigs.
Sure, okay. I can take that. So NOV, you think this is this complex system that lets you drill automatically, and this would take a long time to install. But actually, it's very simple. It's some PLCs, and it can take somewhere between 24 to 48 hours to install on an offshore rig. If you're looking at land, that time frame could be even shorter. So if you think you can plan this in between wells or even in between activities, depending on how much front end work you've done. Multi-machine control, little bit longer because you've got sensors on equipment that need to be added. But again, something that can be done, in between wells, or even, with all these rigs coming in for 5-year SPSs, they can be done in the shipyard. But very easy to install these software and automation packages, and something that we've done quite a few times now. And so with proper planning with the customer, we can be very efficient about it and very quick, so your out of service time is minimized.
Yeah, and then we got another question from LinkedIn from Michael, and they're wondering how you foresee creative solutions like MCDT being received by the current market, especially as people are trying to reduce costs. What is the benefit of integrating something like this?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So it's actually highly relevant in today's market, I would say, because giving our customers the ability to do kind of that frontline troubleshooting themselves, to keep equipment running and to kind of run through all the scenarios of what could possibly be happening is really important. I think that really a customer relying on NOV to be available, or even with the challenges of getting to a rig today, just in kind of today's COVID-19 world, can be hard and just present an extra challenge, right? So if we can give them what they need, their own YouTube on the rig to carry on with their operation, to me, that investment is just very relevant in today's world.
I mean, if you think about it, Michael and Shelby, to kind of expand on what Lindsay said, and to go back to our collar model, if you think, when my check engine light comes on, now I have to take time off of work. I have to take my vehicle over there. I have to try to figure out, well, if they keep my vehicle, how am I going to get to work and back, and how am I going to get my kids? But what if right there, a signal popped up and told you, hey, it's just your oil filter, not a critical problem. You can keep driving until you come to a point, where you can change that filter out safely. And that's what we're doing with all of this software, and specifically MCDT, where it's letting you troubleshoot real time right there, so you can make decisions on your own, which is the best for your business and your well plan, to be able to decide, is this something I need to shut down and fix, or is this something I can delay for 48 hours until I get to a safe stopping point and be able to change it. So that's really what we're talking about here, and it's just a complete game-changing technology.
Excellent. Yeah. And it looks like we've got some additional questions coming in. I think there's one that actually looks like it was on YouTube. And so the question looks like it revolved around API inspections. It looks like the question was somewhere around the idea of, that API requires essentially category inspections 4 or 5 a year. And how does CBM how does CBM relate in that aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And API does give some provision for a condition-based maintenance regime versus just kind of a traditional Cat 3, Cat 4 inspection requirement. So it's a great question, because we do a lot of work on behalf of our customers for their operating clients, the third-party certifying bodies, the DNVs of the world, and just to help kind of endorse some of the methodology and thought process behind the condition-based application of maintenance. So there's quite a bit of engineering effort behind the scenes to really things like begin to pinpoint fatigue. If you're talking about a Cat 4 inspection and structural load, and we've got analytics and models running in the background that can kind of help us better hone in on where that top drive, for instance, may have seen some additional load over time based on its actual usage. So then we begin to use that fatigue data to say, hey, really, we may do some targeted MPI inspections and kind of come back with instead of a full-blown kind of tear down. So it really is a great question. And in the absence of data and some of these analytics that are kind of tried and true at this point, we really wouldn't be able to support any kind of move from a traditional schedule. So I think that's where our customers have really seen a lot of value in this program, both land and offshore, because it really does kind of begin to bring some other interesting data points into the mix that can help justify and endorse some of these maintenance decisions and inspection decisions.
Okay. I think we've got a few more questions that are coming in. Shelby, we'll go ahead and pull you back in here. What do you have for our subject matter experts here, talking aftermarket upgrades and technologies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one comes from Peter on YouTube, and he was actually wondering, this is a question for Zack, he said, from a technology standpoint, are we more kind of in a mechanization moving towards automation, or are we kind of more evolved to that actual automation state? And if you could talk to that a little bit.
No, that's a great question, Peter. So I would say at this point, we're actually past the mechanization point, and we're actually working more just in the full-blown automation and machine learning realm. We've instrumented a lot of the machines already, but as we do develop these technologies and more requests come in for various things in terms of what the data is telling us, there can be the need for more sensors and more mechanization within the tools. But right now it's mostly in the software, and how can the software make decisions based on the best practices and the data that we're seeing coming back on the dashboards, like Lindsay talked about earlier. So we've really moved into the realm of focusing on the automation and not just the mechanization point.
Yeah, it's great. And then we do have one more question. This will be the last one. And we just had a couple of folks who are wondering if there was any data sheets or flyers or where they could get more information and kind of do some reading on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are available to kind of help talk and walk through. And anyone that has any questions, some of this is a bit tailored based on your needs. So I think we have a email address that we can leave with the audience for our fleet care organization, and we'd be happy to do any kind of follow-up there.
Put that email address on the screen. That's going to be fleetcare@NOV.com, and you can send your email or question that we weren't able to get to, if you did have a question that we weren't able to get to in today's program, or if you just have some additional questions on the technology or philosophy that we talked about during the program, you can send an email. And again, that's on the screen now. It's fleetcare@NOV.com. So we've been speaking with Lindsy Sallee, the Vice President for Aftermarket Business Development, and Zack Stewart, the Sales Director for America's Offshore, about aftermarket upgrades, technology, and automation philosophy here at NOV. So Zack and Lindsay, thanks so much for the insight and the conversation today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time, Michael.
So coming up in our next and last segment for today, we are going to be talking about asset management, and specifically talking about the idea of looking at a way to ensure consistent visibility of assets and how to track those. So that'll be in our next segment with our special guest, Lydia Brantley. So be sure to check that out. Again, we want to thank you for joining us on this continuing conversation throughout this week, where we bring in all the experts to talk about technology in many different spaces around the energy industry. So we look forward to taking your questions, comments, and feedback during our live shows. And even if we don't get to you, we're always open to get your insight and feedback, and you can reach us at NOV.com. So for all of us here, thanks for joining us on this segment of NOV Live International, and we look forward to talking with you in our next segment. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.